Do you know what's actually in most of those wellness amenities developers keep putting in buildings? Empty space. The gym on the fourth floor that nobody uses, the meditation garden that collects leaves, the rooftop yoga deck that sees action twice a year. Meanwhile, there are 5 places on this planet where people routinely live past 100, and none of them have a wellness amenity, not a single one. What they have instead is something way more interesting and way more relevant to every building going up in South Florida right now. Hi, I'm Maria, an architectural designer and founder of Bogat Architecture and Design, and today we'll explore what the world's longest lived communities can actually teach us about designing buildings and cities, and why it has nothing to do with a simple rooftop gym. Now, let's start with the thing that surprised me most when I went deep on Blue Zone research. In all 5 blue zones, Sardinia, Okinawa, Ikaria, Nicoya, and Loma Linda, nobody is trying to be healthy. Nobody's tracking their steps, nobody's doing structured exercise, nobody made a lifestyle decision to move more. Physical activity just happens constantly, invisibly, because of how everything is arranged around people. For example, the Sardinian shepherds who walk miles of steep hillside terrain every single day, they're not doing that for their cardiovascular system. They're doing it because that's where the sheep are and the land demands it. The Okinawan grandmothers who sit at floor level on tatami mats, low tables, they're building hip mobility and leg strength every time they stand up to make a tea. Not as a fitness routine, because that's just how their homes are set up. And this is the insight that I think should fundamentally change how we design buildings. The best health intervention is one that doesn't feel like a health intervention. It's not the gym, it's the staircase, so beautiful that you don't even think to take the elevator. It's the front door that opens onto a street worth walking. It's the ground floor activation that pulls you outside before you've made a single conscious decision to go out there. We have been designing health as a feature. Blue zones teach us it should be the architecture itself. So, what do these places actually look like on the ground? What are the consistent physical characteristics that show up across all 5 of them? Researchers have studied this using street-level imagery, demographic data, peer-reviewed analysis across all 5 regions, and the pattern is very clear. Blue zone homes don't have hard edges between inside and outside. In Ikaria and on the Nicoya Peninsula, living and gathering just spills out onto terraces, courtyards, into shared outdoor space. The boundary is a suggestion, not a wall. This creates a constant low-level exposure to daylight, fresh air, and other people, none of which feels like a health decision, all of which compounds over years and decades into something that looks like living up to 102 in reasonable shape. Every blue zone has gathering spaces where you don't have to buy anything to be there. The piazza in a Sardinian hill town, the communal garden in Okinawa, the narrow street in Ikaria that basically functions as the village's living room. These spaces are designed through proportion, shade, seating, where they sit relative to daily foot traffic to produce spontaneous social contact. And here's why that matters architecturally. Public health research now shows that loneliness is as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Social isolation is a physical health risk at the same level as obesity. We keep designing apartment buildings where you can live for 20 years and never even learn your neighbor's name. The floor plan is the problem, and at the same time, the floor plan is also the solution. Blue zones are walkable largely by historical accident. They predate the car, were built at the scale of a human foot. The result is that most of daily life happens within walking distance without anyone deciding to walk or exercise. You walk to the market, you walk to your neighbors, you walk to the cafe. That's not a workout, that's just a regular Tuesday. And across a lifetime, it adds up to something extraordinary. Now, biophilic design is a word architects throw around a lot right now, and in most cases, what it means is there are just simply put plants in the lobby. Well, Blue Zone biophilia is different. It's sightlines that extend to a real horizon. It's street where 3 canopies are dense enough to provide actual shade and microclimate control. It's the understanding that access to nature isn't an aesthetic choice. It's a measurable stress management system. Cortisol drops, blood pressure drops, cardiovascular disease risk drops. The lobby plant is not doing that. The architecture has to do that. There's a concept from Blue Zone research that I think every architect and every developer needs to have in their vocabulary. It's called the life radius. Life radius is the physical environment where 90% of person's daily activities happen. It's everything within the distance you regularly travel on a normal day: the grocery store, the park, the cafe, your neighbor's front door. In a Blue Zone, that radius is compact. And compactness isn't discipline, it's design. The things people need are close enough that walking is genuinely the easiest option. The Blue Zones build environment research points to a specific threshold. You should not have to walk more than about 1,000 feet to reach a public gathering space. That's roughly 3 minutes on foot. Now, I want you to do a mental exercise. So think about any residential development in South Florida, for example, not downtown Fort Lauderdale, but a typical suburban block in Broward or Miami-Dade. Walk 1,000 feet from the front door. What do you pass? Is mostly parking lots, blank walls, and car-scaled retail setbacks. That's the gap. The distance and what fills it is a health decision. We just haven't been calling it that. Florida has grown faster than almost anywhere else in the country for the last 20 years. And a lot of the growth has produced environments designed almost entirely for car travel. Limited walkability, disconnected green space, ground floors built to be seen at 40 miles per hour. This is not a neutral planning outcome. It correlates directly with higher rates of obesity, cardiovascular disease, social isolation, and chronic stress. The same risk factor that Blue Zone's research identifies as the primary drivers of early death. And here's what makes this particularly frustrating. We have the ingredients for something completely different: the climate, the waterfront, the constant sun, the outdoor living that should be irresistible. Southwest Florida already recognized this problem and did something about it. Bonita Springs became the first Blue Zone certified community in the Southeast US. They redesigned streets as complete streets built for pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users alongside drivers. And the result wasn't just health metrics. Communities with higher walkability see stronger local economies, higher property values, and residents who actually choose to stay. Fort Lauderdale has real momentum. Flagler Village is showing what activated, walkable urban infill can look like. Las Olas works because it compresses daily life into a frame you can actually walk. Brightline is threading connectivity through a region that has historically been completely disconnected. The New River is an asset that most cities would build an entire identity around. What's needed now is the design courage to lean into the momentum at the building scale, to not sacrifice the ground floor to a parking podium, to put the outdoor space on the street, to build the life radius, not interrupt it. And while we're at it, I want to get specific here because I think that Blue Zone principles are most useful when they translate into actual decisions, not just philosophy. For any mixed use, multifamily, hotel, or civic project, here are 4 moves that determine whether a building contributes to people's health or quietly works against it. So, number one is make the staircase the invitation. Put it at the front of the lobby. Make it wider and more beautiful than the elevator bank. Make it the obvious path, not the hidden one. Research is consistent on this. Visible, attractive stairs increase physical activity without anyone making a conscious choice to exercise. This is not a budget item, it's a circulation decision on day one of schematic design. And it accumulates into thousands of additional steps per resident per year for the entire life of the building. Number two is activate the ground floor for actual social life, not retail that closes at 6 p.m. Flexible space, indoor, outdoor, adaptable, that can hold a farmer's market on a Saturday, a community meeting on a Tuesday night, and a shaded place to sit on Wednesday afternoon without buying anything. Blue zone gathering spaces work because they aren't programmed to death. They are shaped to hold life and then release it to the community to use. That's the design intent, built to serve, not to control. Number three, design outdoor spaces with the same seriousness as the lobby. South Florida's increase makes this almost embarrassingly easy. We have the weather, we have the vegetation, we have everyday advantage of outdoor living. And we constantly design outdoor spaces as what's left over after everything else is figured out. Planted with whatever survives without maintenance, furnished with whatever is weather resistant. If the outdoor courtyard, the terrace, the greenway between buildings gets the same design budget and the same design attention as the lobby, it becomes the most used space in the project. If it's an afterthought, then it's always empty. Number four, advocate for the life radius beyond your property line. Now, this one is harder, and I think it's where architects often stop short. The decisions determine whether a building produces a longevity environment happen outside the property line. The mix of uses on the block, the distance to the park, the quality of the sidewalk, the presence of transit. Our responsibility doesn't end at the setback. It extends to showing up in planning meetings, in design reviews, in conversation with developers and city officials, and making the case for the density, the mixed use, the connectivity that makes a compact life radius possible for the people who will actually live in what we build. So here's the part of the Blue Zone story that I think is most important, and the most people writing about this topic entirely. Here's the greenway between buildings gets the same design budget and the same design. Blue zones were accidents. Nobody designed Sardinia for longevity. Nobody planned Icaria for exceptional health outcomes. They predate the car, they predate the sprawl, and happen to produce conditions that are now recognized as extraordinarily health supporting. Lucky geography, lucky history. But Singapore did something completely different. Singapore is a dense, modern, urban city-state with no ancient cultural tradition of longevity practice, and yet it now has a life expectancy that exceeds most of the original Blue Zones. It's been seriously discussed by researchers as a potential urban Blue Zone, that the first one that was deliberately engineered rather than inherited. So how did this happen? Long-term commitment to building a city where daily physical activity is the natural outcome of the built environment. Walkable neighborhoods headed by green corridors. 80% of residents living within a 10-minute walk of a park. Active aging programs embedded in public space rather than siloed in senior facilities. They made a decision that the built environment was a health intervention, and they built accordingly. This is the most important data point in this entire conversation for anyone who designs or develops buildings. Blue Zone outcomes are not the product of ancient culture or fortunate geography. They are the product of intentional decisions about how streets, buildings, distances, and green space relate to each other. Which means Every project we design is either contributing to a longevity environment or undermining one. There is no neutral. So I want to leave you with a simple question. One I'm putting on my desk before every project from here forward. Does this building make the healthy choice the easy one? Is the stair the obvious path or the hidden one? Is the street worth walking or is it built for windshields? Does the outdoor space pull you out of the building before you've decided to go? Or does it just exist to satisfy a setback requirement? The five blue zones didn't have architects thinking about health when they built their villages and streets. They got lucky, I guess. We don't have to get lucky. We know enough now to do this on purpose. The buildings we design will be used for 50, 100, sometimes 200 years. The health outcomes they produce or don't accumulate across thousands of lives, across generations. That's the actual scale of what we are deciding when we lay out a stair core or design a ground floor. That's what architecture is for, not just the building, but also the life inside it. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time.